Okay. Ooh. I'm assuming you guys can hear me now. Wow. That was a lot. Okay. Let me leave that. All right. Yeesh. Sorry about that. I was talking to myself for like 10 minutes. That was really cool. Okay. Mine is working now too. Wow. I restarted the broadcast. So I'm sorry. I was just going to brag on how awesome I thought that this software was because I can interact with people. So I'm glad that I didn't do an entire thing with you guys not being able to hear me. So thank you for speaking up. Now I think we're good. Everyone else thought their computer wasn't working and I was over here talking to myself. So that's cool. I totally apologize for that. So I'm going to have to reopen my slides, but as I was talking, I was letting you guys know who I was. And many of you, I saw people that have registered who I hadn't ever seen before. And I've seen a couple names that I have seen before, which I'm really excited about. So if you've ever been to one of my virtual workshops or saw one of our videos or been to our live events, my live events are my favorite because I love to interact with people and I love to see the families. I love to meet the parents. I love to hear about the child and what's going on. That's really where my heart is. But now that, of course, we are needing to be distant from each other, we started these virtual workshops, and it's been pretty powerful, actually, just me being an interactive person. I of course, wanted to do it live, but I've met some really amazing families on these virtual workshops that I've now had in the office. And the reason they were never able to make a live event was because of the severity of their child. And that was tough, but also really for me, very helpful and encouraging that we're able to do these live workshops and also reach parents, because that's really where our heart is with kids who are struggling. We had our own son that was having some real severe struggles, and as parents, I mean, honestly, we care more about our kids than they care about themselves. That's why we are the parents, and we're there to teach them. But for a child who is struggling and having a behavior issue, sometimes they really resonate with it and they don't appreciate that they have it, and other times they just are completely disconnected from it. And I had a mixture of both with my little guy, Landon, who's now 10. But one of my biggest things was to figure out why his behavior was off in the first place. He was my second born, and I thought, he's just different than his brother. And I had all sorts of excuses about him being different and having to split attention. And then pretty soon, him not sleeping through the night, him having night terrors, him not learning in school, him not able to focus, him having atrocious meltdowns. The parenting classes weren't helping me with that. I needed to figure out what the heck was going on with my son and why he was behaving that way, because he was in a seemingly healthy, normal environment to me, but to him, he was stressed. So once I was able to help my son, it's really just poured into my heart to help other parents, because I know if you've got a kid that's struggling, you're faced with all sorts of decisions to make. Where do you go? How do you help them? Where to put your time, money, energy, everything to be able to weed through. There's just so much. And for me, I needed to know why before I could move forward to say, okay, this is what I need to do, and this makes sense to me as an adult. And now the kid is thriving, and I'm all about bringing this to other parents. So really our workshops aren't so much work as they are helping parents understand why and how the brain works, how it gets information, and how it can be off in the first place. So if you guys will put in the chat a little bit about what struggle your child is having, that way I can speak at it even more interactive than I can with parents that I have no idea. Because like I said, I didn't understand, or I understand the severity of some behavior issues, but I didn't know who was on my screen at the time. And we had a child who had come in who was 15 and had all sorts of behavior issues, including being expelled from school and on multiple medications and just not really loving himself. And that was a really powerful connection that we've been able to make with that family, as well as kids are on the spectrum with no, verbal communication, very little eye contact. So things like that. If you could put in the comments what sort of struggles you're having that I can speak at, that would be really helpful to know what my audience and who my audience is. And I like to speak on parenting in particular because, and I'll read your comments and be able to, answer some of them as we go, and then some at the end as well, if there's some different questions that come up as we start talking. But what I started noticing when I really started digesting what was going on, not only inside of homes when with parents, but also with teachers. And I started teaching a continuing education course for teachers to help them understand a sensory issue versus a behavior issue. Because it's difficult for them as well when they're dealing with 25 kids. I've got 3 of my own at home I'm trying to figure out. So I understand how difficult it can be in school as well with teachers. So we started doing that for them. But we noticed 3 camps that teachers and parents tend to be in. And one, and it typically is the parenting camp that you were raised in, but not always. And we've got the authoritarian parent that is like, telling their kid what to do, sit still, don't do that, point, do, and not really helping them through the why. And then we also have permissive parents that just are like, I don't want to ask him to do anything because I know he's going to freak out. We just don't want to rock the boat. We're walking on eggshells all the time. I'm just going to let him have his things, let him have his screens, let him have his, bedtime, let him have his crackers instead of his salad, because that's what works in our family, can't handle the stress. And then we have the families that are looking for the proactive approach of like, how do I help my kid the best? Why is this behavior there? How can I address it? How can I get on their level to talk to them and figure out why, and then they can understand why as well. So anger issues, yep, and counseling. Yes, that all sounds like sensory stuff that we're dealing with, and it's really difficult. Thank you guys for responding on there. And if anybody else has anything to add, that'd be great. That we can talk at, because I like to keep some of this really lighthearted. But as I said, with this teenager, I mean, he was just checked out of Intermountain Medical for some pretty bad psychiatric conditions that were going on. And then the parents were like, I can't believe I just didn't know about chiropractic at the time. So sensory issues, yes. Okay, so this lightheartedness is more of you might be a sensory seeker if, and we're having fun with this, but when you look on here, somebody that's seeking sensory input, they're all looking for input into the brain. The brain wants to absorb what's going on, and they are the kid that just does not stop moving. They're humming, they're dancing, they're moving their feet. They're the ones that the teacher's like, oh my gosh, I can't get them to sit still. And now that you're probably the homeschool parent, you're probably in the same boat as like, oh my gosh, yeah. They aren't sitting still, they're chewing their pencils. We've got about 30 seconds of work in. You are not alone. And I can add in here for some of the kids that do have the expulsive behavior, or they're sometimes they're self-hitters as well. And we do see a lot of those kids that will harm themselves as well as other people and get really violent and angry. Obviously, that's not as lighthearted and things that we want to necessarily talk about, but also our seekers that are the foot pounders and the flat gait with the feet and nail biters as well. Those are also sensory seekers. And we also have kids that are going to avoid all sensory issues. These are the ones I heard somebody say about the pants not fitting, or clothes being uncomfortable. Yeah, socks, and you forget about it. The lights are too bright. I'm going to eat one food and that's it. I don't want to try anything else. I'm going to gag, or my life's going to be over if I fall. I have a wound. I mean, things literally for these kids hurt. And noises are loud and it stresses them out. So, chewing their gum might want them to, plot your death. So it goes weekly. And yes, and they can be a combination of the two. There's some kids that will seek sensory issues or sensory in some areas and avoid it in others, and touch is turned up, but the volume's turned down and they need to yell. So it's really interesting how these behaviors manifest. And we've got lists and lists of things that we're able to help teachers through as well, to be able to understand the classroom, what's going on, and how to not overstimulate this. But it's helpful for parents to understand it as well, and especially since we're the teachers right now, quite honestly, whatever teaching is occurring in your home. So far, the parents I've been chatting with, it's not been a lot, and it's really tough. So when you're looking at what sensory processing is, our bodies are constantly taking in information from the environment through all of our senses. And we do have the 5 that we're thinking about, but we also have a sense of movement, a vestibular sense, and a proprioception, movement sense. What's going on? Where are you in time and space? And those are actually highly, highly important into the brain. And we're going to talk about this even more as we go throughout, how the brain takes in information, and movement is a big, big deal, as you probably know if you've got a kid who's struggling a little bit here. Yes, and including anxiety, frustration, low self-esteem, yes. Where, unlike you're looking at blindness or deafness, they are sensing this input. It has a broken volume control, is what we like to call it, where the senses are turned up too high or too low, and it causes stress, discomfort, and confusion, and it manifests in behavior. Often what we see is, we'll be in the same environment as our kids, or even just another friend, another parent that you're talking to, and we'll see that one person is acting one way, they're taking in information and feeling stressed and angry, and there's somebody else taking in information, they might be lighthearted and joking, and we're like, why does my child have a complete meltdown when all we need to do is transition from toys to dinner or the grocery store or this play date's over, which we probably aren't having a whole lot of now. We're like, I just don't understand why they're freaking out about this. This is a seemingly normal environment. Well, we're all living our lives through our nervous system. It's one of my favorite posters. So everything that we think, say, do, taste, smell, touch, all of those senses have to be processed through that nervous system, and how well that thing is running. And if there is stress stuck in there, we're going to see the output of that. And very few times do we look at the input. So how does the brain, how does this nervous system get the information? How come the broken volume control is there? Because the input equals the output. And often we're over here looking at the output. We're looking at the behavior, saying like, ooh, I don't like what's happening here. Give me a tip or a tool or a trick or something to help with this behavior, instead of understanding, well, wait a second, why is his brain taking in that information and experiencing the world that way? There's a lot of children that I sit down and meet and talk to the families, and we run neurological scans in our office for some really objective data to look at it and say, okay, here's what's going on. And they're like, I don't think my kids had a good day ever. I don't think their senses have ever been on par. I think that they've always been like this. And we're going to take a look at where it starts. But honestly, that's typically the case. Our nervous system has to be under constant surveillance of bringing in information from both your external environment and your internal environment, what's going on inside all of those organs and glands, and coordinate the behavior of all other cells. I pulled out the perception, coordination, and behavior, because that's usually what we're looking at, but instead of looking at the nervous system. And you might be that parent that's like, oh my gosh, I've had every system in their body checked. We've checked their eyes, their nose, we've checked their urine or stool or stomach. We're looking at everything, their ears, nose, throat. We don't know what's going on. But very few people know or are even told to, you should check the master control system. You should check the central nervous system and figure out if they're taking in information in an altered way, and get that measured and released, instead of trying to manage the output or the behavior. And I honestly didn't even understand this or know this as a chiropractor. I had to get advanced training into advanced pediatric neurological based care in order to take care of my own son, because I'd already been a chiropractor for 7 years, not knowing how to help him or understanding that it wasn't the tools that I was given in my toolbox from graduating from chiropractic school. It's more of a generalized toolbox. And if you want to go farther and start to understand neurology and brain development and how the brain develops and how children will change and adapt and bring in information, you really need to go deeper and figure out what exactly is going on inside of them and how their nervous system might be off in the first place, because what we see is them stuck in fight or flight. So many of you probably know about the fight or flight response. That fight or flight response is an innate, inborn response that's supposed to be very short-lived, and it's supposed to be there for survival. But unfortunately, a lot of our kids will live there. And that nervous system's got two modes. It's got fight or flight, the gas pedal, and it's got rest, digest, and heal, the brake pedal. And the brake pedal is where we should be, where we're sleeping and growing. That's why infants and children require so much more rest than we do, because they're growing and developing a lot more. They're making a lot more neurological connections than we are. From birth to 3, children are making 1 million new neurological connections a second, which is just, mind-blowing. So the more stress that they're under, the more stressful neurological connections they're making, rather than calm, peaceful, taking in the environment in a normal, seemingly normal manner. So this fight or flight response, we talk about it as flipping their lid, and you might have seen this analogy before as well, but we've got a prefrontal cortex, the front of our brain that does the rational, organized, higher brain center thoughts. This is the creative side of our brain, and we have then the hindbrain, the amygdala, that runs this fight or flight response. Well, this guy is really reactive and impulsive, and this guy will turn up our senses, because we're supposed to be literally running or fighting from some sort of threat that's there. So the eyes will dilate so you can see better. The ears turn up so you can hear better. The senses on the skin turn up, tactile, because you need to be able to run or flee. The blood starts getting shunted from the vital internal organs. The heart rate rises, blood pressure goes up, it's shunted out to the limbs to fight or flee, and our internal organs start missing out on what they need, and we'll start to see other struggles such as gut and immune or endocrine, which is your hormone cycle, undersized or oversized children during this time. And that parasympathetic or brake pedal side of the nervous system is often missing out. And that guy is not only one of the most important sides of the nervous system during growth and development, but it's one that many kids, especially with sensory processing, with anxiety, with some of the other mood, I saw ODD and some other things that were on here, that is being missed. Epilepsy, this is a big one as well. That parasympathetic nervous system is not being stimulated, and it's being missed in these children. So I had a research study, I know it's really small, so if anybody wants this actual research to take a look at, they were measuring what's called vagal nerve tone. If you haven't heard of the vagus nerve, or you haven't heard of the gut-brain connection, that's that big old fat nerve. It's got 9 times more fiber than any other nerve in our entire body that connects our brain to our gut. It actually runs the upper 2/3 of the gut. It runs the entire braking, parasympathetic, rest and heal and digest side of the nervous system. So if you're looking over here, and I know this is probably small, and especially if you're on a device, this one string right here is running all of these organs. And then you see down here in the bladder with the parasympathetic plexus, and the lower part of this spinal cord in your central nervous system. Well, this vagus nerve is often undertone, and they found this in the research. We also find it in our office because we run neurological scans to see just how far a child might be stuck in a fight or flight, or possibly actually stuck in parasympathetic because they need to catch up and heal and repair. And we know now that our hands are able to stimulate that vagus nerve to start connecting, to start working appropriately, to get the right tone, to reconnect the brain and the gut. And this guy, this vagus nerve, is also really tied to compassion. So some of the kids that are missing compassion with themselves or with others or with their behavior, this vagus nerve is also typically very restricted. some of the parents that will come in and say, okay, we've had care in here, they've had chiropractic adjustments, we've been freeing things up, they might just start pooping like crazy, or they might start puking because their body is figuring out that there's something else that's going on. They also start slowing down. They're like, oh my gosh, they're sleeping for so long. Or they started feeling bad really quickly after some of their meltdowns or their reactions or maybe their angry outbursts, which is really cool. But what we look at as pediatric chiropractors are we're the middleman to help restore the brain and the body do what it's designed to do, to help restore the nervous system from not feeling stressed, to allow it to do what it was designed to do, which is self-heal, self-regulate, and be healthy. It's already there inside of the child or inside of the adult. It's something magical. It seems very simple, like that's all you did, you got them adjusted. Yes, that's all you have to do in order to get the brain and the body to reconnect and restore itself, to be able to calm down, to be able to take in the world the way that it was designed to. And okay. It's really amazing. I think sometimes we overcomplicate things quite a bit. We want to pull the body system apart and just address different things like, oh, they've got swollen lymph nodes and their ears aren't draining well. And we want to look at just, the ears and the tonsils instead of understanding, well, why might it not be able to drain? Well, the immune system is usually really affected under stress. It starts being turned down. And unfortunately, we find that many kids starting at birth, I said it might start really, really early. Your child might not have had a great day or a clear day really yet, because so many of them have stress in that central nervous system from even conception. Really, I didn't even think about this, quite honestly, as a mom when I was pregnant with Landon, that I was stressed. I had moved to a new place. I was starting this new business, and they get your chemical bloodbath. So I was kind of setting the stage, unfortunately, for him to, add a little bit of stress during the birth process, and bang, he was already wired for it because he got it from me. So, and this is never a look to say, oh, mom, this is your fault, ever. I would say our windshield is so much bigger than the rearview mirror on purpose. So we can look back and say, okay, that's where we've been, check, close that, let's look forward and figure out how we're going to move this child forward in their life and how we're going to make things better. That's my absolute goal in life. So I've got another research study. If you guys are researchers, you're going to love these studies. They're not even done by chiropractors, quite honestly, but this study was done in 2015 to look at neurological stress. We call it a subluxation, neurological interference from the birth. And they had found these children from varying degrees of a lot of neurological interference to a little bit of neurological interference, and then being able to tie it to their health and their life, which was really, really substantial. For us to look at and say, yes, we know that this can really start from the birth process. As I said, it can start during pregnancy, especially during, an anxious time for a mom. I had a miscarriage just prior to this and was very nervous when I was pregnant with Landon, just thinking, worried about losing him as well and feeling very on edge about that. And we'll often just kind of follow this path with these kids into even adulthood, where there's typically an injury during the birth. Birth is a very stressful time. I'm going to show you a video of a birth next, but it's really stressful on a baby. We might just, I've talked to moms who just did, I did yoga and deep breathing and meditation. I ate kale chips, had a perfect diet, but the baby had to come out somehow. And how it was perfectly formed in utero to where it comes out into the outside world really, really matters, you guys. It's a pretty big deal, and very, very overlooked, unfortunately. I know some of the families will come back and be like, I wish I would have known it started at birth instead of chasing, symptoms around, yes, cord around the neck, emergency C-section, absolutely. And Adriana, at 32 weeks is when the parasympathetic nervous system starts to develop. Up until that point, just the sympathetic nervous system is developing. So when babies are born so early and they hadn't even had a chance for that parasympathetic nervous system to take in effect, then, they're born into fight or flight, but also missing out on parasympathetic, which is usually why they spend a lot of time in the NICU, and they'll often turn into really stressed babies. That's the only way a baby can tell us that they hurt is through crying. And really, babies should be sleeping, pooping, eating, repeat, right? That's all they should be doing. And instead we have babies that are crying and arching their backs, and they've got torticollis, they're not able to latch or rotate, and they're screaming to us to tell us something's off, right? The motor control system to the mouth is off, to the neck is off. These babies are screaming to say my digestive tract is off, this vagus nerve has been restricted, it's not allowing me to digest my food, I'm constipated, my ears can't drain, I get one, ear infection when a tooth comes, the ears aren't draining out, and now they're like, okay, we got to get some antibiotics. Once they're up against gravity and running around, when things really will start to set in is when we start to see some of that hyperactive, the meltdowns, the sick, stressed toddlers. They might be at the point of looking at ear tubes or having the tonsils out, adenoids out. If they've gone on that path, or maybe ultra constipated, or you start experiencing some digestive issues, some eczema, these are all signs of stress in a baby, and they'll often say, well, they're just gonna outgrow this. And unfortunately, I wish that was the case, but they'll typically just grow into something else. This crying and stress tends to just filter into more stress. And by the time we ask them to sit still in school and focus, they're unable to do that. Their body's been under this state of stress for so long, and we expect this, for 7 hours under, brick and fluorescent lights, sit here and learn, and they literally can't. Their brains are looking for input or avoiding the input because it's too much. And by the time they're a teen, which I'm going to do an anxiety and teen virtual workshop in June, by the time it gets into their teen years, they're anxious or depressed, they're having a hard time making connections with friends, they don't feel good about themselves, their self-esteem is really low, and they'll just continue to grow into something else, which is usually burnt out, stressed out, exhausted adult. And unfortunately, I just had a 25-year-old in today who is in number 7, and he's like, I feel so old, I'm tired, I can barely get out of bed, my back hurts, I can't bend over to put on my shoes. Yeah, that's a big deal. Our bodies should be able to self-heal and self-regulate and not be under a constant state of stress or need to be chemically stimulated in order to get out of that. These are the people that are often looking to numb it, whether it's medication or alcohol or other ways that you choose to numb your stress and calm your brain down, is looking for movement. Some people have become hyperactive exercisers as well. So I just want you to sit down for just a moment, and I want you to watch a cesarean section. I know someone said they had an emergency C-section. Like I said, birth is stressful. Landon happened to be a very fast delivery, and I didn't really look at it as traumatic that he didn't get the nice squeeze out of the birth canal. It wasn't something that was in the top of my mind. Quite honestly, I just wanted my baby. I think that's how we all are as parents. We're like, oh, just, but as long as they're crying, just give them to me. And instead of having it evaluated as what, here's what may have happened during the process. And if he starts showing or she starts showing these signs, please have them evaluated by a pediatric chiropractor. I really wish this was the case. So here is a scheduled cesarean section. So this is an emergency. These doctors are very calm. There's we call it a whistle while you work cesarean section. And I want you to watch it and just tell me if you think that there would be stress added to this child's life. So let me just get over here. I'm going to share my screen with this video on here because it's not doing well on my screen. And I want you guys to watch this. It's a vacuum. Okay, I hope I'm back here. Hang on a second. All right, am I back? It's too small. It's small in the corner. Okay. So could you guys see it or not? It's 4 years. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. Let me know. Did you guys see that? We could see it was small in the left corner. Okay. Let me just. see if we can watch it again, which is not that fun, but let's go back. Okay. All right. Hang tight. Could you guys see it that time? It's on my screen, but no sound or movement from the video. Okay, hang on a second. We're gonna get this, guys. All right. Okay. Okay, now did you see it? Someone screaming on sound move. Did you guys see it that time? I'm hoping you did. No, really? Well, well, well. What? And here we go. We're just gonna have to play it this way then.
Getting irritated. Oh, there you go, fella.
Come on, buddy.
All right. Here's a.
It's still on the video screen. Okay. Well, let's change my layout here again. We're just having some technical difficulties here. Sorry.
Getting irritated.
I wonder where this is at right now. Okay, well, I'm gonna send you guys this video, still on the video screen. All right. We're gonna try one last time, and if this doesn't work,
irritated.
Nope, it's not working. Okay. Well, heck. Now we're gonna play a little Blair Witch Project and snap through these slides really quick. I apologize for that. I don't know why that's not wanting to play for you guys. I wish it would. Shoot. Okay. Well, I'm going to send you guys that video because it's really powerful how much force and pressure they have to use to pull the baby out of the womb. It is over 60 pounds of pressure just in a normal vaginal delivery, and unfortunately they use up to 120 pounds for a cesarean section if they have to. This was a vacuum where they kind of pulled the head out and then yanked the little buddy out. And we're honestly, what we look at when we are holding a little infant is like, you know, everybody passes the head so carefully back and forth, and we just make sure that, you know, the head doesn't fall down. And unfortunately, we know that we don't want to damage the head or the neck. We know how important it is, but we don't think about moments before birth, when they've never touched gravity, when they're just resting in their mother's womb, how traumatic that can be to be pulled out of a womb into bright lights, cold air, talking people, you know, syringes jammed down their nose. It is complete fight or flight. And I know someone had said that they had a preemie as well, and that can be a really a really scary experience to be separated from mom and stuck into a NICU tank for as much as we want to hold and comfort them, that they're being separated from mom and dad as well, when that's all they had known was your voice, your heartbeat, you know, the warmth of your belly. It can really start that fight or flight response. So often when kids come in, this is some of what we hear. We do a really thorough examination of them and look, because we know that the way the brain is firing and how the body is moving is how the brain is developing, which is why motor milestones are such a big deal when we are looking at them in infancy, because we know that's how the brain is developing. And unfortunately, I know I'm trying to get back to that screen. Candace is just not letting me do it. It might here in a minute. We'll see children who, because of the stress of birth, their heads are kind of locked, ears are tipped, nose might be rotated or tilted, and you'll see high shoulders, you know, uneven pelvis and joints, knees, ankles. We'll kind of just look at the whole chain to see how much they might be compensating for a stress in the upper cervical spine. And I highlighted a couple areas in here of this beautiful red organ, which is your brainstem, and how it is so important and such a huge piece of taking in sensory information, taking in the environment. And this white or this yellow bone around the white bones here, which is your first cervical vertebra. And if you guys remember when Christopher Reeve's Superman broke his neck, this was the bone up here. So if we think for even just a moment that the littlest amount of pressure on that brainstem wouldn't affect the way the body operates when a complete fracture shuts things down from there below, we're missing a huge piece of the healthcare puzzle, unfortunately. And that upper cervical spine does over half of the input, that proprioceptive input, the movement to the brain, calming brain food, the way the brain's able to develop itself through those motor skills. Over half comes from that upper cervical spine. 60% of that proprioception comes from the spine. It's so important, and about 10% per limb. There's also areas of high dense proprioceptive receptors, which are in the hands. Those are huge. The jaw, the groin, and the feet. So you'll see kids using those to stimulate as well, and looking for input into their brain because they're not getting what they need. And this is going to continue to alter their senses. And unfortunately, we'll start feeding it. This is what we don't realize or we don't mean to do as parents, as care providers, as teachers, as grandparents, as someone who loves this child, is their body's kind of stuck in this fight or flight mode. It's taking an altered perception and it's got its foot on the gas. The brain is just going and going. And we need to not only break it and stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system response and that vagus nerve, but we'll feed it through what we call environmental stress, or the things that are in and around them. We call these the 3 T's, but physical, chemical, and emotional stress, thoughts, toxins, and traumas will be taken in and accelerate this process. So the more that's going on around them, the more we're like, oh my gosh, sit still, what's going on? Or we not realizing that some of the food to them might feel like a toxin because their volume control is turned up so high, or they might have an allergy of some sort. They're rejecting on what's going on around us, and we just kind of go ding, 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 ding. We don't really realize the amount of toxins that are in some of the foods we just kind of allow them to eat, or the cleaners that are in the air. I used to dissect every one of these and make sure people were, removing toxins from the home and helping them with a counselor if they needed to, and evaluating physical stress, which is honestly now that trauma on the video, which I wish you would have been able to see, is really, really important to look at. And every fall, substantial fall after that, but sitting still at a computer or at a screen for too long is more stressful to the brain, quite honestly, and the body, than it is moving too much. So what we'll see is kids will be over here just pegging out when they add one more piece of stress to their body. And it's hard when that lid's flipped off to go into complete fight or flight. it's tough, you know, it's tough as a parent to understand them. It's tough to be able to control it. You're going to feel their negative energy. And like I said before, we as parents care about them more. And it's tough when they just can't take in the right information and you're like beating your head up against the wall, like, what, you know, what am I doing wrong? What can I do better? And I can tell you that the more neurologically connected your child is, the calmer state that they live in, the easier it is to parent them, because they're taking in their environment and what's going on around them in an appropriate fashion. And I got to tell you that there's so many misunderstood kids right now in this world, and I see it over and over and over again, including my own, who, you know, the feedback I got was that he needed more discipline. Well, guess what? That didn't really make sense, that he wasn't sleeping through the night and having night terrors, that he needed a spanking. That was absolutely out of the question for me. No, that didn't make sense. That doesn't make sense why he's not learning, because he needs more discipline. He literally couldn't. He literally couldn't hold a pencil. He couldn't see. He had got prescription glasses, which I now have because he didn't need anymore. He was so neurologically disconnected. And when we changed his life and I saw the stress just lift from our home, from our marriage, from our other children, from the school that he was in, I was like, I had no idea this many kids were struggling. My world was opened up to a whole gamut of parents who were looking for the same sort of answers and the same sort of help. And that's what my husband and I and my office at Purpose Driven Chiropractic has absolutely just devoted our lives to, is these kids, because I believe every single child matters. They are our future, and how they bring in their world is going to matter for our world in the future as well. And I just feel like there's so many misunderstood kids that have such altered perception that they just can't reach their God-given potential that I know is stuck inside. And that was my Landon. Here was him writing his name. This is when his kindergarten teacher said he can't go to kindergarten. He doesn't know his name. He doesn't recognize it. We're setting him up for failure. I mean, I don't know what to do, but he can't come here. You're gonna have him evaluated at, you know, early childhood. And my world came from just crumbling down. And I literally went everywhere to try to get answers and help. And when I found out about this training program, and I found out there's a chiropractor that's been doing this for over a decade, helping children like Landon and like all the other kids that come to my office, like I'm doing that. I'm hammering through this program. I'm going to help these kids. We're now trained on neurological scans to actually measure the stress, see how far they're into fight or flight, see how their brain is taking in information, see how the organs and glands are affected. It's such an amazing thing. We're so blessed to do it. I feel like we're just the middleman in all of this. As I said, their bodies and their brains are capable to get the stress there for their body to take in the information the right way, for their brain to receive that information and then spit it back out, is so important. And you know, Landon made this huge reconnection with his brain and his body. It's one of the biggest things that we looked at for him that it was affecting, quite honestly. I mean, you can see all the things that he was having a problem with, but it was his self-esteem. It was what he thought about himself that really crushed my mommy heart for him, that he knew that he couldn't do things like other kids could do things. That really broke my heart. So watching him make those connections with friends, with himself, with school, with learning, and now watching him thrive and watching all the other kids that come to our office get the same care and be able to thrive, it just is, it's so rewarding. When a patient comes in off of the street, especially a complicated case, it's $300 for this evaluation and neurological scan, and to give you a game plan. Just an average person, $189, but for people that come to my virtual workshops, that come to my live workshops, we give a $100 offer VIP pass. So if you click on this link and you pay the $100, it's going to get you all of that for $100, and that is including the neurological scans. It's a sit down with the doctor. It's our thorough intake. It's your questions answered. It's a game plan moving forward to figure out what can we do to unlock the potential that's there for your kid? And I wish I could share my screen. I don't know why I can't get my face back on here, because I want to meet every one of you, and I want to meet your kids and be able to answer any of your questions as they come up, and be able to help you understand your kid a little bit more and understand what, yes, is it not active, Whitney? Because if it isn't, let me just make sure that I can do this. Copy. I'm gonna put it, no, all right, well, wow, we're just having all sorts of tech issues today, and I'm just killing it. Kill me off first. Yeah, oh, and there is also the offers on here as well. So if you go down to, is it in the bottom, Candace? You can do it, yep, there you go. We're able to do that as well, and there should be a follow-up email, yes, yay. There should be a follow-up email for you guys to be able to get this and get your questions answered as well. I have had some parents with some kids that are really severe that had met with me first just alone, just the two of us, or if you're not even comfortable with that at this time in your life, doing a virtual webinar like this to be able to answer your questions, it's great. But once you fill out that thorough intake, I'm going to know what stress was there and the way to direct the questions for you. And then we can meet your child later, get him evaluated or her evaluated, and get a neurological scan so we can get a game plan moving forward. You can see now, okay, good. So it's just, like I said, it's been a passion of ours. It's been a passion of our teams, and everyone's got a heart for these kids. You just wouldn't believe some of the success stories that we hear, and parents are just out of hope and, you know, beating themselves up about how to parent this child or what to do and what direction to go or what parenting class, what sticker chart, you know, what supplement. While all those things are great, being able to get your child fully neurologically connected is the best thing that you can do. Yes, so fill out the VIP pass, and you should be able to, we should get an email alert. I'm pretty sure Candace is on here. We'll get an email alert when you've got that filled out and the credit card information put in. If you are somebody that wants to pay cash over the counter, we do that as well. And we will be able to contact you, get you an appointment for you and your child, or just, you know, parents first, and be able to get you guys some of the answers that you're looking for and some hope that you're looking for your little one. Summer's a great time to do it. Usually, you know, always is anyways, but summer's always a great time because the kids are active and they're outside and they're in the sunshine and they're moving their bodies. Although I'm sure many of them are doing it now because they're not stuck in school either. It's such a great time to watch our kids thrive. If you guys have any further questions, pop them in the box. I'll sit here and answer them as I can. I'm still trying to get my face on here. That'd be great if I could do that. And otherwise, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate it. I can't wait to meet all of you. Like I said, I wish I could see all of your faces and you could see mine, but that is not the case currently. And I don't even know what happened. As I was just, like I said, oh, look at that, me, yay. I was gonna say, as I was just bragging about how great the software was and how I can interact with people, it is failing me. Okay, so thank you guys so much for coming in. What's your plan look like? Whitney, it really depends on the child and the stress that we find in the scan. All kids are individual and adults, but we're going to be able to make an individualized care plan for that child based on the amount of stress that's there. We also look at something called brain organization, and sometimes they need a little bit longer if their brain's more unorganized than it is the child with a very organized brain. We'll often see kids who are just very sensory seeking. They're kind of all over the place. They've got that like go, 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 rah, they don't sit still attitude. Or we've got ones that are a little bit more disconnected. Their brain's a little unorganized. They're usually a little bit taller, lankier, lower motor tone, sometimes glasses and speech, a little bit more anxiety there, some of the sensory avoiding behaviors. Sometimes it's the same amount of visits, they're just spread out a little bit. So anywhere from 4 months to 6, 8, 9 months, depending on honestly the severity and the age at which it came or it's been there. You know, the 15-year-old that I was talking about that's in, he's on multiple medications. It's got a long list of diagnoses that are going on. His care plan is substantially longer than it would be for a newborn or a 2-year-old with, you know, some behavior issues and ear infection. So for Eva, can I call and get in for an email before I fill you came in there? Yes, 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 absolutely. If you've got, I have other questions, absolutely. So go ahead and I'm gonna assume that you have our phone number, but if you don't, I'm gonna put it right in here. And 208-938-9548. And make sure that they just let them know that you have watched this virtual workshop, that you had some more questions about your child and wanted to get some more answers. Absolutely love to do that for you. And Candace is one of my team members who takes a lot of those phone calls too. So if there's more questions that you have for either the team or the doctors, yes, please do that. We are open tomorrow from 8 to 1 and 1:30 on Fridays, and then we will be closed on Monday for the Memorial Day holiday. So we for sure, if we can get you called, if you call tomorrow, or even if you want to put your information in for them to call you, that way we can get you scheduled by Tuesday to talk to one of the doctors. That would be fantastic. Yes, oh good, I'm glad. Yay, you're very welcome. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm sorry about the audio issues. That was wow. And the video, so we're gonna get those links to you. You can watch that video. And I apologize for the audio delay, but you're welcome. Thank you for joining me. I hope you guys have a great weekend and enjoy your Memorial Day, enjoy your families and your little kiddos. And I can't wait to meet you guys all soon. You're welcome.